So in question number 4, we're going to practice using the product and quotient properties in action. Now, to do this, we just need to start picking up on the immediate sort of triggers, if you will. That whenever you see a plus sign, it means multiply. And whenever you see a minus sign, it means divide. And I don't mean we're multiplying or dividing the entire problem. I just mean we're multiplying or dividing whatever's inside the logs. So for example, this plus sign in between the natural log 5 and the natural log 6 tells me that I am multiplying the 5 times the 6. So if I condense those together, then natural log 5 plus natural log 6 as one single quantity is natural log of 30, because I'm multiplying 5 times 6. And I know I'm multiplying because of the plus. Now there's still a natural log 2. Notice we're still consistent. These are all like terms because they all have the same base. They all have the same natural log, so same base e. And I can tell myself once again, hey, wait a minute, plus sign, I can multiply and I can condense them together. So natural log 30, natural log 2 condenses down to natural log 60, which is as far as I can go because now notice I have natural log with one single value. We call this condensing because we just took 3 separate natural logs and condensed the whole problem down into one single log. And that's the goal, is that we would take 3 separate things and merge them together into one. Now, for the most part, the majority of the questions that you're going to see are going to be like that. You just have to pay close attention. For instance, in letter C, we have log 50 minus log 5 minus log 2. Now, there are no parentheses or anything to dictate what we should do first, so typically we just go from left to right. The only time you'd have to really pay attention is in something like letter F where it has parentheses, and we know PEMDAS always says do parentheses first, so we just have to be careful and mindful there. But let's do this from left to right in the absence of parentheses. Log 50 minus log 5 tells us we're going to be dividing 50 and 5. So the log stays there. Remember, the log doesn't go away. We're condensing it. We're not getting rid of it. So 50 divided by 5 would be 10. So I've definitely condensed the first 2 things down into a single log, but I still have another minus sign and another log 2, which means I'm going to have to use another quotient property, because again I have another minus sign, and I'll use the quotient property this time with 10 and 2. So that's, if I condense it down, 10 divided by 2, 5. My answer must be log 5. Notice my answer isn't 5, it's log 5. And the reason it's log 5 is because condensing doesn't get rid of the logs, it just shrinks the problem into one single log instead of multiple separate smaller pieces. Now the last example I want to just make sure I address is question letter B, because question letter B has an unexpected number in the front of one of its logs. Notice that 2 in the front of the first log? That hopefully reminds you of the property you saw in the previous lesson called the power property, which, as you recall, is based on the idea that if you have something in the front of a log, multiplying it, it came from an exponent spot on the opposite side of the log. That 2 in the front used to be a power. So I'm going to move that power back up so that I could ask myself, well, what is this really? 2 log 2, that doesn't make sense to me when it comes to multiplying, but if I move that 2 back up, in other words, if I get rid of it from the front and relocate it as an exponent, now I have 2 squared. Well, 2 squared, of course, is 4. So if I rewrite the problem for a moment, now all of a sudden it makes more sense. Now all of a sudden I have something that looks a little bit more familiar and I can do my condensing. Now you can condense all in one step, or you can do multiple steps. I'll leave that kind of up to you. I always like to do 2 at a time, but some people don't mind doing 3. It's your call. I know that I have the plus sign, so that means I have log of multiplication. 4 times 7 is 28. Then I have another plus log 3, and again I use another product because I can see a plus sign. So 28 times 3, I believe, is 84. So I have log of 84. Now, if ever you get to the point where you're like, oh, I am really not sure if I got this correct. Like, I'm genuinely not sure if I got these values. It feels wrong, or I'm just not sure that I actually did this correctly. Here's an option. Grab a calculator and type the original problem exactly as it was. 2 log 2 plus log 7 plus log 3. You're going to get a decimal. It's not going to say log 84. But if you press log 84, you should notice you get the same decimal. So even though it's not going to tell you directly if your answer is right, the calculator can at least help you confirm. And if you feel as though you still have some hesitation about whether you're using the properties correctly, I would recommend you have a calculator available to you for this exact reason, so that you can start to develop that sense of confidence that what you're doing is actually working. Try to do the remaining questions in this section, just so that way you can start to get familiar with the product and the quotient properties in action. And then on the next page, we'll talk about additional examples and different contexts in which these properties might come up.